Want to use a PGR in your cereals but have no time for a separate pass? Manipulator PGR can be applied as early as one tiller. Just add it to your herbicide to reduce lodging, increase harvest efficiency, and maximize yields. Talk to your retailer for more info and to confirm acceptable tank mixes.
I mentioned at the beginning of the show, we've got a rookie to Real Ag Radio here. We're joined right now by our next guest. It is Martin Carr, and he is agronomy manager for Western Canada for WinField United Canada. Hey, Martin, welcome to the show.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great stuff. So you're based out of Saskatoon. How's the weather there today?
It's raining. That's a good day for everyone, right? We'll take the moisture for sure.
It's a miracle. It's nice to see. I saw there was one person last night that was tweeting and showing like the big pattern. Like it's, the good part of Western Canada is going to get some rain here in the next 3 days. Drought over. Slow down. Slow down. We got to get the rain.
Yeah.
Two, in some of these areas, in such a deficit position that we're going to need a little bit more than what we're getting this week. But it's a great start.
Great start, absolutely, right? It's far and it's far too early to start writing things off or suggesting it's going to be a bin buster just yet, right? It's still May what 6th, so we still got lots of time for sure. But like you said, great start. We've had a little bit of moisture here over the last couple of weeks as well, right? So that soil moisture is especially in the top little bit, right? That's enough to get things going and hopefully be on the right start. So
yeah,
I'm optimistic anyways.
I love it. I like it. Yeah, you got to, as growers say to me all the time on this show, you got to be optimistic to be in this business. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the sprayer today, and I know you've been doing some sprayer clinics in different parts of Western Canada, and when I think of sprayer clinics and making decisions about the sprayer more so than ever before, like nozzle selection is a critical component of that. Whether we are doing a burn down or we are in crop, what is the application? What products are we using? What are we doing? Nozzle selection is critical. So what are some of the things that are in that decision-making process of coming up with the right nozzle to be using for that application?
Yeah, for sure. So, first of all, we will talk about, nozzle life, nozzle calibration, making sure that, the nozzles that you got in your sprayer aren't worn out, right? So that's definitely something that happens, right? I think a lot of times we see water coming through that nozzle. It looks like it's making a fine pattern, but is it actually distributing it how it should be? And a lot of times when we've done live calibrations, they're usually pretty old, worn out nozzles. So that's the first thing. But when we're even just picking, if we're now going and getting a new set of nozzles, the one thing I always like to bring up or think about is what are we actually putting in that sprayer, right? Is it highly systemic, like something like a glyphosate? Is it very much a contact product, right? Where it lands is where it burns, that's where it enters, right? So that might be something like your group 6s, your group 10s, right? Those are products that they generally don't move, and translocate through the plant the same way glyphosate would. And then you have other products that they are systemic, I'll say. You think about something like a lot of your group 1s, your group 2s, right? They do move throughout the plant, but they aren't like a glyphosate where, it's more about getting the right dosage to the plant. You do still need good coverage for those products to work effectively, right? So that's the biggest thing when we're looking at nozzle selection. First of all, water volume, right? If a label says 5 gallons or 10 gallons, that's a good idea, right? We should be following that. So that'll tell us the color. But even more so than just water volume, we want to now, if something calls for 10 gallons, we want to make the most of that 10 gallons, right? We don't want a bunch of it drifting off target. We also don't want to make a bunch of baseballs coming out of that droplet either, right? So finding that point of, okay, what sort of coverage do we need? Because the coverage requirements for something that's highly systemic is a little different than something like that needs a lot of contact. And then it's, well, what about your tank mix situations, right? Because we shouldn't be spraying things by themselves anymore, right? Multi-mode of action is a huge important piece around managing weed resistance. So then you've got to look at law of the minimum, right? And then typically that will drive you towards spraying how the contact needs to be sprayed. Because if you spray a tank mix and only one of those two can be successful, is it truly multi-mode of action anymore? right? Because multiple mode of action is all about, you've got, if one was resistant to it, the other one could kill it. Well, if it's applied in a way that can't be successful, is it truly multiple mode of action? I would argue probably not, right?
Yeah, and I was just going to ask you about the consequences of. A lot of times we talk about the benefits of using the right nozzle, but what's the consequences of not using the right nozzle?
Absolutely. So, if you go with something too fine, right, that can lead to, drift, that can lead to off-target movement, it can lead to evaporation. So, if you're using something that's more of a flat fan style of nozzle, what you could be creating, 30-40% of that droplet size could be too small to actually hit the target, and you could be losing a lot of product. So your consequence of losing a lot of product, first of all, could be drifting onto the neighbors or into the ditch or doing some damage. The other thing is it's you're losing money, right? Because that product isn't landing where it's supposed to. And then the last consequence is potentially weed escape, right? If you put that product down for it to work, but it's only hitting the plants at a reduced rate, you're not actually getting how much you need down there for it to be effective. You could lose control as well. So those are sort of the multiple things that could happen if you're too small. Then if you go too big, now off target becomes less of an issue. Evaporation has become less of an issue. But again, you start looking at your control. Your coverage would have drastically reduced. So if it's something that's highly systemic, you might get away with it. But even something that's highly systemic, if you go too big, right? If you go to the ultra coarse side of things and you drive through something like a kochia patch, for example, in a 1 square meter kochia patch, how many kochia plants are in there, right? Thousands. Well, if you have an ultra coarse droplet and you spray it over, you might hit 5% of them, 10% of them. So you'd actually just miss, right? So even something that's highly systemic, that still doesn't overly work that effectively, right? So it's about finding that balance. Where's too big, where's too small, and then even within the chemistry is optimizing for each of them.
And what role do adjuvants play in the effect?
Yeah.
So talk about that before we wrap up.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we look at adjuvants, so the one on my shirt here, interlock, we talk about lock technology, right? Or lock tech. That would be things like interlock, master lock, and strike lock. What those products are really designed to do is get rid of the driftable fines, but they don't make everything coarse, right? There's different ways you can mitigate drift with adjuvants. One is to thicken the spray solution and make everything bigger, right? That's kind of like going from that flat fan to ultra coarse, right? It makes everything bigger. What we do with interlock and master lock and strike lock, what we've noticed is when you add that to the spray tank, it does get rid of a lot of those fines, but because it's not thickening that spray solution, you're not making an impact on the medium or coarse or very coarse droplets that are going to come out of the tank already, right outside of that droplet. Because no nozzle is going to make every droplet the exact same size, right? You always get a spectrum. But what we're seeing is we get a tighter spectrum when we're using interlock. You get less driftable fines, but you don't make any coarser ones on the other end. So you get a tighter spectrum, more uniform droplet size coming out of the tank. So what is the adjuvant doing there? It's helping get more of the product that you need onto the target.
So it's making the product more effective, essentially, or it makes your application more effective. Not necessarily
make the application more effective, yeah, because you're not drifting as much. You're not drifting as much away. It's getting to where it needs to go. Yeah, and that would that essentially has benefits, right? Because it's not you're not losing it.
How do I know? Because I've seen a lot of the different products that are out there. How do I know which one I should be using in which application?
Yeah, so one thing for WinField United is the amount of time investment money we've put into actually researching our products. Right, we have a research facility in River Falls, Wisconsin, and at our innovation center we've got a couple spray chambers. One is a spray analysis system that will profile droplets with 3D nozzles, and we've tested over 800 different nozzle combinations through that facility. So we'll be looking at how the nozzles are going through it, what spectrum of that is coming off of, what is driftable fines, and we do put active ingredients through it because we don't just spray water through our sprayers, right? And a lot of times you're putting your herbicides through that sprayer. It does change what that spray spectrum looks like. And that's something that we've done a lot of at our facilities. We'll test lots of different nozzles, lots of different products, and then adding different adjuvants in there and seeing what impact they make. So and then we also have a wind tunnel. So once we profile it, we can actually test how far these things are drifting. And the wind tunnel that we have is the only one in the world that's like it. And down below, we'll do ground speed winds up to 40 mile an hour. And at the top, it's an aerial chamber, and it'll go up to 160 mile an hour. So we can actually test both ground and aerial and actually measure how far droplets are moving off target with different nozzle combinations.
Wind tunnel. It's like we're running a race team. Pretty cool. Same concept, same reason. So very, looking at aerodynamic and racing, but here we're looking at drift. So very, very cool stuff. Hey, Martin, this has been fantastic. We got to get you back on the show sometime very soon here. So maybe once that crop gets out of the ground, we'll catch up again. So really appreciate you joining us here today on Real Ag Radio.
Right on. Thanks for having me.